order. Starting with the roll call, it appears that we have everyone today. Fantastic. Looking at the agenda, any additions for today's agenda?
President Coons, I just want to, maybe we need to switch the financial report review to come before the approval of the expenditures to get the report first.
Okay. Any other additions or changes to the agenda? Alright. Hearing none, we'll go to the approval of the meeting minutes. Would entertain a motion for the approval of last month's minutes.
I have an issue with the minutes. I believe that it needs to be documented in last month's minutes that there was an announcement of Ian being hired. That Linda said, I quote, he will be starting February 5th, 2024. There was no mention of an approval by the board. It was just stated that he was hired. And that is not in our minutes, and I believe that it needs to be.
I can actually work today. There we go. The meeting minutes were already done when we'd been told that, so I don't think I can add it afterwards. Retroactively, I don't think that's possible, since the meeting was already finished.
No, I'm just asking that what was said at the meeting is part of the minutes.
Of this month's minutes.
No, of last month's minutes. So last month's minutes say, open library director's position. An offer has been made to Ian, and now, I'm sorry to mispronounce Ian, and will be reviewed by the board prior to his appointment as director. That was never stated in last month's meeting. The only thing that was stated, and I watched that video, you stated he was hired and that he will begin February 5th of 2024.
I have to say that if I did say he was hired, he couldn't have been hired because all the applicants were still in the process. And he gave a February 5th as a possible date to start, and that date has been changed, considering after all application background information and everything has been changed. But it was towards the end after it had already been adjourned, and I just quickly gave the announcement because it wasn't on the agenda as an agenda item, and I was just having to ask about it, so I did respond. But it was an agenda item, and it was after the adjournment of the meeting.
That was my understanding as well.
Yeah.
Yes, but Luke has made it part of the minutes, and so I'm asking for it to be stated accurately. That's all I'm asking for.
I would think at that point it should just be struck from the minutes if it was after the meeting had adjourned.
Yeah, I mean, I would concur with Renee if it was something that was stated after the meeting was adjourned. It should be struck.
But I would have to argue with that because it was still communicated to everybody in the room. So, in that being said, public and myself walked away from last month's meeting with the understanding that a director had been hired and had a start date. And that was the only information that we were given.
And I mean, I understand that assessment because I actually called into the next day because I had heard that we had hired a director. So, I understand where you're coming from, so I do.
I'm just saying if it's gonna be in the minutes, it needs to be accurately stated.
It's still the board's decision on how it wants to be recorded in the minutes.
I personally think it needs to be recorded in the minutes because the meeting had been adjourned and it was on the heels of that, but everybody was still present in this room. Nobody had left. So that is my personal opinion.
Not being super familiar with the rules of meetings and all of that jazz, is there?
She can make that motion.
Sure.
Yeah.
I motion it.
Yeah. I'll second.
Further discussion?
Mrs. Holwood, what exactly would you like, how would you want it stated, and just so that
I
we've
would
got
love for it
the
to
motion
be stated exactly
appropriate?
as Linda said. A new director has been hired, his name is Ian, he will begin February 5th of 2024. That was literally what was said.
Any further discussion? Alright, that being said, we can take that to a vote. All in favor say aye.
I,
All opposed say nay.
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 I'd like to request a roll call vote on this one,
Okay,
because I was unclear on who said aye and who said nay.
absolutely fine. Board member Orderman,
Nay.
Cop,
Nay.
Freeze,
Aye.
Hurt,
Nay.
Paul,
I,
and Kuntz is a nay. Do you have any other discussion or additions or corrections to
Well,
the minutes?
Those who voted nay on that,
Yes.
should it be struck then?
I agree, it should be, because it was post-meeting, so it's not part of it.
Do you want to make that motion?
I would make a motion to strike the last paragraph on the, prior to the new business, on last month's meeting minutes. I'll second that.
Any discussion? We'll do a roll call vote on that as well. Board member Orderman,
Aye.
Cop,
Aye.
Freeze,
Aye.
Hurt,
Aye.
Paul,
nay.
and mine will be an aye. With that, motion carries. Any other discussion on last month's minutes?
Before we move on, real quick here, not actual discussion, just clarification for minutes' sake, since we're on the topic of minutes anyway. If I could quickly get a tally of votes for both the first and second, since we did roll call votes for both. Wouldn't mind, I'd appreciate it.
Did you get these votes?
The second one I got, yes, the first one is rather unclear.
Do you want the specification of the vote?
That I can handle afterwards, that's no big deal.
So the first vote, just for clarification of the minutes, Orderman, yours was, Cop was nay, Freeze was aye. Hurt, yours, oh, yours was,
I,
and.
Mine was nay as well.
there was 4
Thank you.
nay and 2 ayes.
Thank you.
Alright, any other discussion on the minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion for approval of the minutes with the striking of that last paragraph.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Alright, motion carries. Our financial reports.
Nothing abnormal. Honestly, December is a low-key month for us simply because we're at the end of the budget and just waiting for the new budget to come out.
What exactly are the details of the budget for 2024? Do we as a board approve that budget, or how does that look?
The budget is approved by the city commission,
Can we
and
see that budget?
actually, the books are being printed right now. And it will also be online on our website, on the City Dickinson website. And then it's, where the table of contents is linked, so you can go right down to the library and you can, it'll flash it right over there to that page, cause it's like a 138 pages book. And then you can print it out also, but, it should be out we're hoping by the middle of next week. So all of that is there for the budget.
And Kimmy, for ease of the board, when I'm reviewing that, I'll print the library section PDF and send it out to the board. So we've all got it.
Any other discussion of the financial report? Hearing none, we'll move to the approval of expenses, looking at the expenditure report.
One question on there regarding the accrued leave expense. Trying to think how to phrase it. My question is, how is that in that location and separate from being part of your salary if that's benefits? Is that different?
Yes, accrued leave is the payout of any benefits when an employee leaves.
Well,
So-
that's not paid out yet, but it has to be.
Right, that's why the line is in there with a zero, cause we never know. But that does come out of the portion of the benefits side of the, and it usually covers itself due to the salaries not being used. But that is the payout of an employee terminating.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion?
I'd move to approve the financial report.
Second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. The library director's report.
Alright, I passed out a little colorful packet to you. The first page should be, related to collection suggestion. The first one is the original page as it was before our board meeting last month when, Ms. Ho had questioned not receiving any sort of confirmation screen that the collection suggestion had gone through. We did a number of tests and we determined that this was the page that comes up when you first submit it. We did actually go and ask, for some enhancement on that, so our staff has changed it. It's not gonna require an email address, so if anybody does a collection suggestion, they're gonna get a confirmation email that that has gone through. As well as the refreshed page then will have the, information about the collection suggestion, the disclaimer, and there's a line there that says, thank you for submitting a suggestion to the library's collection. I think it benefits a little bit because it's got, with our new website, some things refresh and it's the city's colors, and I think that's what that first one was. Now when it refreshes, it's still on the library's page, and so it's our website's colors. It kind of ties it in a little bit better.
Renee, I just wanted to make sure I heard you correctly, so that they will put in an email address and they will get a receipt, or like
You have to now enter an email address when you do the collection suggestion. I think it was bagged before. The unfortunate, thing as well with that is that we always ask if you'd like to be placed on hold if that item is purchased. If you don't put your library card in there, we don't have any number to tie that to. Unfortunately, that particular field, while maybe we could, require it to be the correct digits long, there's no verification to show that that's a valid library card number, and we feel like the email is the most effective way to have that. So that you have record of it, you can check on it, you can call us and say, was this happening?
Renee, how many of these collection suggestions do we get at the end of the month?
Since the new form, and I can't remember when that website went live, maybe the middle of November when we all went through that. I believe that number that we have received so far was like 38.
Okay. Do you have any idea how many of those we've added to the collection?
I do not.
Okay. there was a way that we could somehow quantify that, cause I mean, I think that would be data I'd be interested in, is like, of the suggestions we receive, how many do we fulfill? And maybe you don't need to have unique suggestions from, you know, if you have 5 requests for the same case, Patterson book.
We have to set the parameters,
Yeah,
obviously then.
yeah.
Are we asking how many people have asked for things, or are we asking for how many things have been asked for? I mean, there's a lot of ways that's looked at.
I guess I would be more interested in like, how many requests are fulfilled. Like, if we get 50 requests and we fulfill 25 of them, like we have a 50% fulfillment rate, I understand how it's difficult to quantify, because if you get 10 requests, and 10 of the 38 requests you get are for the same book, you really only have 28 requests.
Right, and it's outside of our normal workflow. I can take it back to the people who make the acquisitions ordering and see if they can think of a way that it's feasible to do that. It's one of those things in our day-to-day, somebody says, hey, I'd like to have this book. Sometimes it's already on the cart, we've already ordered it.
Right.
So that's another way in which, does that count then?
Yeah, well, it also makes sense that you would order the book that you got 10 requests for.
Right.
And potentially have that ordered prior to the press coming in, you know, they're hearing news of a new book coming out, well, it's probably already, you know,
We do try to follow some of those most popular things that
Sure.
circulate the most, like.
But I also would be like, and the reason why I think it's something I would be interested in us finding a way to quantify is, let's say that there is a book that's been requested 10 times, and we're not buying it for whatever reason. What's the reason we're not buying the book?
So then you're wanting us to not just quantify, but also to have a label on it. And then at which point is that identifying what people are asking?
I think the interesting point that I'm pulling from this is that we're actually seeing our community suggestions in the suggestion for books. So that is serving our community.
Yeah.
When we're recognizing that our community is asking for these books, then why are they not taking the place of the 1,000 of other books that we order every month if we are truly serving our community? It's a valid question.
Any book, any item purchased in the library is dependent upon the collection development policy. Are there any things that are like that? How old is it?
Sure.
That sort of thing. Because we share resources with a number of libraries in our consortium, that's something else to really consider, is can we get it? If one person has asked for this book, but it's available at the state library, can we request it for them?
So, you know, Renee, that's, I mean, and we're spending maybe more time on this than we need to, but, and I would never, like, you guys are busy, but, the receipt of the email, saying, hey, you know, we received your suggestion, it would be interesting to have, you know, like, for example, you said like they can follow up in like a couple weeks' time and find out whether or not we were gonna get that book for them or whatever, or we were gonna purchase that book. But to maybe have this be a trigger for us to like look into the collection and then have an answer for them when they call, like, hey, you know, we don't have it here in Dickinson, but we can get it from the Billings County Library or from, if you so wish. We're not necessarily interested in adding it to our collection at this time, but we can get it for you. Just so that like, that citizen feels like, that request has been heard and processed. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I do understand that. It is, I wish it was as black and white
Yeah.
as it sounds to someone who doesn't work at the library.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't know that I can verbalize it in a way that even makes sense. This topic came up some months ago, I think, at a board meeting. And I remember going back to the library and checking to see what Fargo Public Library does, or Bismarck Public Library. And they're just, with the volume of work that we are all doing, nobody has a workflow that accommodates that personal
Sure.
one-on-one treatment for requests. And I don't mean that to be cold or impersonal, because we do, if somebody comes in and asks for help, we're gonna help resource
Well,
it's
the
a
reality,
process.
the
so-
reality of it is, if you get 38, in an email,
In an
but you're
email.
getting a bunch at the desk, like, just human nature is that you're gonna address the request at the desk before you know.
No,
you-
not at all. No, those are all put into one pile. When
Okay,
the ordering
right.
goes, that's when they're
Okay.
evaluated.
Okay,
No, it's not a pick and choose whether it came through email or whether it
Okay.
came through someone standing in the
sure.
desk.
Okay.
That part isn't, it's,
Yeah,
they have the same weight.
That's good clarification,
Yep.
thank you, yeah.
Any further questions on that? The next page that's attached to the handout I gave you are our programming numbers and comparison data from 2023 to 2022. People attend our programs and we know it, and it's just nice to see it portrayed, so that you can see it. In some areas, there may have been some decline. Some of that's related to, we used to have two, a certain type of program in a month, and it's gone down to one just to accommodate other programs, so. If you have questions, I've got two people from programming here who could answer those for you better than I can.
I'd like to know what we're gonna do in the 0 through 12 age range in terms of program, that we've seen a significant increase there. That's great to see.
Yeah, it's, I think that our story times are so great, the STEAM events are, continue to be very, very popular. It's one of the, few events we require a sign up for, just so that we have materials and staff available to accommodate, so everybody has a good experience.
Yeah, that's awesome, those are great numbers.
I did have a beautiful note written up about the survey and the survey results, which I left at my desk, so I can bring it to you next time. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was the circulation stats, which that document went out with your, packet. This is the report that I generally run, for our files every month. It includes all of our branches, the Morrison School Library in, Medora, the Prairie School Library in Fairfield, the bookmobile circulation, as well as the main branch of the library. You'll notice there's a category called none at the top of all of those. Those are the electronic books through the Libby app. Or items, I should say.
Renee, real quick, jumping back to this,
Yeah.
year-long reading challenge, is that a trend that we're seeing, is that they decrease in minutes logged? I know we only have 2 years here, but, have you guys seen that? I know like circulation numbers are up, but are we just not getting those minutes logged by those that are participating in those programs?
So we utilize the Beanstack app for logging those
Yeah.
things. That part I don't know if I could have a good explanation for. Cause the number of participants there is still about the same.
Yeah.
Badges were earned, but fewer minutes. No real idea.
Yeah. Just curious.
One of the things that I found interesting looking at this circulation collection is that, for community languages, there's one item checked out. Would that be a book in Spanish, or what would that clarify as?
So I actually don't know the answer to that. What you're looking at is items, every library puts their things in collections that fit their vision, their purpose, however they want to categorize those. Community languages is not one of our items. That would have been something that came from another library.
I just have noticed, as I've gone through the last like 3 or 4 months of, invoices, that there has been quite a handful of books that are being bought in Spanish. And so it triggered, just my eye when I thought, oh, there's one taken out of community languages. I'm just wondering the need for books being bought in Spanish.
In the past few months, we tried to pick what's currently wanted, and we tried the different reading levels, sorry. So we will have a very small collection, it hasn't even been cataloged yet, so it's in the process.
When we do have, books of second languages, do you categorize that in a different section of the library, or do you just have those live amongst, like if it's a
We've set
Spanish
aside,
nonfiction?
no, we've set aside, a couple of shelves to host these books so that it's easy for us to point to them.
And in running a report like this, would that show up in its
I don't
separate
think so,
area?
because I think
or
they're gonna be in their, what
What it
their
actually
category
is, so if
is.
it's Spanish adult fiction or Spanish
It'll be
children's
children's, I
nonfiction?
think, it'll be purchased.
Okay,
And it's kind of just to give us a baseline to see if they actually will continue to be utilized.
we're seeing an influx in the public schools as well, we had a lot of speaking students, and not as much that were able